broken woman enters her husband's family mansion hoping for comfort, but is met with cruel laughter and humiliation. While everyone laughs at her pain, treating her like a spectacle, she feels invisible even to God. But in that room full of rich and influential people, the person who will change everything is precisely the one no one sees, the humblest worker in the house. With a single sentence, he breaks the silence, exposes the hypocrisy, and begins a turnaround that no one expected. What began as humiliation transforms into restoration, and what should have been just help becomes something much greater. You won't believe how God used the most unlikely man to rewrite this story. Sarah was 32 years old when her world crumbled. It wasn't all at once, you know. It happened gradually, like a wall cracking until one day, it collapses. Her husband, Daniel, had been the man of her dreams, or so she thought. 4 years of marriage, a comfortable house in an Atlanta suburb, plans to have children. Everything seemed perfect. Until the night she found the messages on his cell phone. It wasn't just betrayal, it was abandonment. Daniel left home on a Thursday night, taking 2 suitcases and saying he needed to start his life over. Without a real explanation, without an apology, without looking back, Sarah was left alone in that empty house, feeling as if the ground had disappeared from under her feet. The bills started arriving, the rent, the electricity, the car. She worked as an administrative assistant, earning enough to live on. When she had someone to share the expenses with, alone, she couldn't. In 3 months, she lost everything. That's when Sarah made the hardest decision of her life. She decided to look for Daniel's family, not because she thought they owed her anything, but because, truly, she had no one left. Her parents had died years ago in a car accident. She was an only child. She had no close uncles, no support network. And in the 4 years of marriage, whenever they visited his family, they had been cordial, polite. She thought that maybe, just maybe, they could help, even if it was just a place to stay until she got back on her feet. The Morrison family lived in a mansion in Buckhead, Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood. Those enormous houses, with impeccable gardens, automatic gates, and imported cars in the garage. The patriarch, Richard Morrison, owned a chain of luxury car dealerships. Money had never been a problem for them. Sarah remembered the family gatherings, always formal, always full of protocol. She had never felt completely at ease, but she had also never been mistreated. He thought that counted for something. When Sarah rang the doorbell of that mansion one Saturday afternoon, she was carrying a small bag and had a heavy heart. Margaret, Daniel's mother, opened the door. A woman in her 50s, always impeccably dressed, with perfectly styled blonde hair and discreet but expensive makeup. Margaret looked Sarah up and down, paused for a few seconds, and said, "Sarah, what are you doing here?" The voice wasn't exactly hostile, but it wasn't warm either. It was surprise. Surprise with a hint of unease. "Hi, Margaret. I know this is unexpected, but I needed to talk to you. Daniel, he left me. It's been 3 months, and I lost everything. I couldn't pay for the apartment. I have nowhere to go and—" Margaret crossed her arms. For a moment, Sarah thought she was going to slam the door in her face. But no. Margaret sighed deeply, looked to the side, as if weighing her options, and said, "Come in, but the whole family is here today. Sunday gathering." Sarah entered. The house was even more imposing inside than she remembered. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, expensive furniture, works of art on the walls. Everything shone. Everything was perfect. And Sarah, in her worn jeans and simple blouse, felt smaller than ever. In the living room, everyone was there. Richard, the patriarch, sat in a leather armchair as if it were a throne. Beside him was his wife, Margaret, now with a barely disguised expression of discomfort. On the sofa was Amanda, Daniel's younger sister, a 28-year-old who worked as a marketing manager and loved posting pictures of her perfect life on Instagram. Next to her was her husband, Brad, a real estate agent who always had an arrogant smile on his face. And in the corner, standing, was Marcus, the family gardener. Marcus was in his early 40s, dark-skinned, with calloused hands from so much work, and a serene expression on his face. He was there because he had just brought some gardening tools that Richard had asked for. Normally, he wouldn't even enter the living room. But that day, for some reason, he stayed. Perhaps because he sensed that something was about to happen. Margaret made a vague gesture toward Sarah and said, "Sarah showed up here. It seems that Daniel left her." There was a silence, and then Amanda let out a little laugh, a low but audible laugh. Sarah felt her face grow hot. "Seriously?" Amanda said, tilting her head with a feigned expression of surprise. "You don't say Daniel finally woke up to reality." Brad laughed too. Richard didn't laugh, but he had a slight smile, as if he were secretly amused. Margaret just sighed, as if it bothered her. Sarah tried to speak, but her voice came out trembling. "I know this is unexpected, but I have no one left. I've lost everything. I just need a place to stay until I can get back on my feet. I can help around the house, I can work, Work?" Amanda interrupted, now with a broad smile. "Sarah, darling, you could barely keep your own apartment afloat. What are you going to do here? Clean? We already have people for that." Brad let out a loud laugh. Amanda continued, "Look, not to be mean, but did you really think you could come here and we'd welcome you with open arms? Daniel left you for a reason. Sarah, maybe you should think about what you did wrong." The words hit Sarah like punches. She felt tears welling up, but she held them back. She wasn't going to cry in front of them. She wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Richard finally spoke, in that deep, authoritative voice. "Sarah, you seem like a hard-working young woman, but this is a family matter, and you're not family anymore, are you? Daniel made his choice. He's starting his life over. Maybe you should do the same." Sarah looked at Margaret, searching for some sign of empathy, some spark of humanity. But Margaret simply looked away. She wasn't going to contradict her husband. He wasn't going to upset their daughter. Sarah was alone. "I understand," Sarah whispered, her voice almost fading away. "Sorry to have bothered you." She picked up her suitcase and turned to leave. Tears now streamed freely down her face. She felt as if she were sinking, as if the whole world had given up on her, as if even God had forgotten she existed. That's when Marcus spoke. "With all due respect, Mr. Morrison." His voice was calm but firm. Everyone turned to look at him, surprised. Marcus never spoke at family gatherings. He was invisible. But there he was, standing, looking directly at the Morrisons. "I've worked here for 15 years. I've seen many people come and go from this house. I've seen parties, gatherings, celebrations. And one thing I've always admired about this family is their faith. The Bible's on the shelf, the prayers before dinner, the trips to church every Sunday." Richard frowned, clearly annoyed. "Marcus, that's not like you. Please let me finish," Marcus said respectfully but unwavering. "The Bible you read, Mr. Morrison, says in James, 'Pure and undefiled religion before God is this, to look after orphans and widows in their affliction.' Sarah came here broken, begging for help. And what did she receive? Laughter, contempt, humiliation." The silence in the room was deafening now. Amanda was blushing, Brad had stopped smiling. Margaret was speechless. Richard was at a loss for words. Marcus continued, now looking directly at Sarah. "Young lady, I don't know you. I don't know your whole story. But I know how to recognize someone who's at rock bottom. And I know that God hasn't forgotten you. He never forgets." He turned back to his family. "I don't earn much. I live in a small room in the back. But if this woman needs a place to stay, she can stay there. It's not a luxury, but it's shelter, and it's offered with respect." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. That man, whom she barely knew, who was treated as invisible by everyone there, was offering her the little he had. A stranger. Richard stood up, his face red with anger. "Marcus, you're fired." "No, he's not here," the voice came from behind. It was Thomas Morrison, Daniel's older brother. who had just come in through the front door. Thomas was 38 years old, a lawyer, and lived in Nashville. He rarely visited the family, but that day, he was there. And he had heard everything. Thomas entered the room with that calm but firm presence he always had. He was different from the rest of the family. He always had been. While everyone else sought status and appearances, Thomas sought substance. He had moved to Nashville precisely to escape that suffocating environment of Buckhead, where everything revolved around how much money you had and who you were seen with. "Dad, you're not going to fire anyone," Thomas said, putting his briefcase down and looking directly at his father. "Least of all the man who just gave us all a lesson in character that none of you seem to have learned in decades of going to church." Richard was purple now. "Thomas, you don't know what you're talking about. This is a family matter and Sarah was family for 4 years," Thomas interrupted, his voice rising for the first time. "She was at all our Christmases, at all our dinners, at all our birthdays. She was always respectful, always kind. And when my brother, because as much as I love Daniel, let's be honest, when my brother cowardly abandoned her, do you think the right response is to laugh at her, to humiliate her?" Amanda tried to defend herself. "Thomas, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Amanda." Thomas looked at his sister with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "You're so worried about maintaining your perfect little Instagram life that you've forgotten what true compassion is. And you, Brad, always laughing at everything as if other people's pain is a joke. You two deserve each other." Thomas turned to his mother. "Mom, I always saw you as a woman of faith. But where is your faith now? Where is your courage to do what is right? Even if Dad doesn't agree." Margaret lowered her head. She had no answer. Thomas then looked at Sarah, and his tone changed completely. It became gentle, almost paternal. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. Truly. You didn't deserve this. Neither what Daniel did, nor what this family did today. If you want, and I can help you find a place to stay. I can connect you with people in Atlanta who can give you a job opportunity. You don't have to accept Marcus's offer, although I deeply respect what he did." Sarah wiped away her tears and looked at Thomas, then at Marcus. 2 offers. 2 men who, each in their own way, had recognized her worth when everyone else only saw her as a laughingstock. Sarah began, her voice still weak. "I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Thomas, but," she looked at Marcus, "I accept Marcus's offer, because I need to be close to someone who reminds me that God still sees me." Marcus gave a slight smile and nodded. Richard exploded. "Have you all gone mad? She's going to live in the servants' quarters. Thomas, are you going to allow this? She was married to your brother, and now she needs help, Dad," Thomas replied, calm but firm. "And if Marcus is willing to help, I'll make sure he's not harmed by it. Besides," Thomas took out his wallet and pulled out some business cards. "Marcus, if my father fires you, you call me. I have several clients in Nashville who need reliable people with character. You'll have a job before the sun goes down." Richard didn't know what to say. He had been publicly challenged by his own son, and everyone in the room was watching. Margaret was paralyzed. Amanda and Brad seemed uncomfortable for the first time. Thomas took Sarah's suitcase and said, "Come on, Sarah. Let me help you get settled in." The 3 of them left the room. Thomas and Sarah and Marcus. Behind them, the awkward silence of a family that had just been exposed remained. Marcus's room was at the back of the property, in a small building that had previously been the caretaker's house. It was simple. A bed, a wardrobe, a small table, a small but clean bathroom. But it was decent. It had windows overlooking the garden. There was natural light, and everything was impeccably organized. "It's not a luxury," Marcus said, somewhat awkwardly, "but it's shelter. You can stay as long as you need." "It's perfect," Sarah said, and she was sincere. Thank you for seeing me." Thomas stayed a little longer, talked to Sarah about job opportunities, exchanged contacts, offered financial help, which she politely declined, and promised to call every week to see how she was doing. Before leaving, he hugged Sarah and said, "God hasn't forgotten you. I know it seems like he has, but he hasn't." In the following days, Sarah began to rebuild. Marcus had a rigid work schedule. He woke up early, tended the garden, and made small repairs around the property. Sarah offered to help. At first, he refused, but she insisted. She said she needed to feel useful. They worked side by side. Marcus taught Sarah about plants, about caring for the land, about patience. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were always wise and thoughtful. Sarah discovered that Marcus had lost his wife years before to a fulminant cancer. He had raised 2 children alone, both now adults, one a nurse, the other a teacher. He was a man of deep but discreet faith. He didn't preach, he didn't quote verses. He simply lived what he believed. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, things were tense. Richard was furious with Thomas and Marcus, but he couldn't fire Marcus without causing a bigger scandal. After all, Thomas had made it clear he was going to help Marcus, and the last thing Richard wanted was for the story to leak. A rich man firing a worker for helping a woman in need. It wouldn't be good for business. Margaret Ashe, on the other hand, was uneasy. In the days following the confrontation, she watched Sarah and Marcus working in the garden through the kitchen window. She saw the way Sarah smiled when Marcus explained something. She saw the peace in his face, and she felt ashamed. She had considered herself a woman of faith all her life. She went to church, read the Bible, participated in prayer groups. But when she had the chance to live what she preached, she had failed. She had remained silent while her daughter-in-law was humiliated. One afternoon, Margaret left the house and went to the garden. Sarah was planting some flowers with Marcus's help. When they saw Margaret approaching, they both became tense. "Sarah," Margaret began, her voice hesitant. I need to talk to you." Sarah stood up, wiped her hands on her trousers, and waited. Margaret looked different, her shoulders less rigid, her expression less haughty. "I apologized to God several times this week," Margaret said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I need to apologize to you. What happened that day it was unacceptable. I should have defended you. I should have comforted you. And I didn't. I stood there silent, afraid to contradict my husband, afraid to cause trouble. And that was cowardice." Sarah remained silent, processing. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Margaret continued. "But I wanted you to know that you have value. You always have, and I was wrong. Very wrong." Sarah took a deep breath. It still hurt. But she also knew what Marcus had told her days before. Forgiveness isn't saying that what the person did was right. It's saying that you won't let it hold you back anymore. "I forgive you, Margaret," Sarah said, her voice firm but gentle. "But I need you to understand one thing. I'm not going back into that house. Not like this. Not as someone who's being tolerated. If I ever go back, it will be because I know I'm respected. Truly." Margaret nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. "I understand. And I'll work on it. I'll be better." She turned and went back inside the house, leaving Sarah and Marcus alone again. "You are strong," Marcus said, looking at Sarah with admiration. "Forgiving is not weakness, it's the opposite." Sarah smiled, a feeling of lightness she hadn't felt in months. Weeks passed. Sarah got a job at a small bookstore in downtown Atlanta. Nothing glamorous, but honest. Thomas had helped with instructions, and the bookstore owner, a woman named Evelyn, had taken a liking to Sarah immediately. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough. Sarah was rebuilding her life. Meanwhile, something was changing between her and Marcus. It wasn't forced, nothing planned. It was natural. They talked at night, after work. They shared stories, laughter, comfortable silences. Marcus told her about his childhood in rural Georgia, about how he had learned gardening from his grandfather. Sarah talked about the dreams she had abandoned when she married Daniel. She always wanted to have a small flower shop, but Daniel thought it was a waste of time. One night, while they were sitting on the steps of his little room, looking at the stars, Marcus said, "You know, Sarah, when my wife died, I thought it was all over for me. I thought I'd never feel joy again. But God has a funny way of healing us. He uses people. He uses time. He even uses pain sometimes. And when you least expect it, You realize you're smiling again, that you're alive again. Sarah looked at him, her heart racing in a way she hadn't expected. Marcus, I don't know if I'm ready to feel what I'm feeling, she confessed, her voice low. I'm scared. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of trusting. Marcus turned to her, his eyes kind but serious. I understand, and I won't rush anything. But I want you to know one thing. From the day you arrived here, broken and humiliated, I saw a woman of courage, a woman who didn't give up, even when it seemed like the world had given up on her. And if you give me the chance, Sarah, I promise I will treat you the way you always deserve to be treated. With respect, with honor, with love. Tears streamed down Sarah's face, but this time they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of something new, something she thought she'd never feel again. Hope. I want to try, she whispered. I want to try again. Marcus smiled, a wide, genuine smile, and held her hand. It wasn't a romantic gesture from a movie. It was simple, real, true, but all was not peace. Inside the mansion, Amanda and Brad hadn't changed. They still made malicious comments, still laughed at Sarah whenever they had the chance. To them, she remained the rejected one, the one who couldn't hold on to her husband, and now, the one who's with the gardener. The laughter was cruel. Until one day, Richard called Sarah into the house. She was hesitant, but she went. He was in his office, sitting behind his enormous mahogany desk, his arms crossed. Sarah, he began, his voice less authoritative than before, but still distant. I know things didn't start well between us, and I'm not going to lie. I still think you should have moved on without looking back. But my wife insists I owe you an apology. So, here it is, I'm sorry. Sarah knew he wasn't being sincere, but she also knew Richard was too proud a man to admit a real mistake. That was the most he could give. Thank you, Sarah said simply, but I'm not expecting validation from anyone here anymore, Mr. Morrison. I came here broken, thinking I needed you all. But God showed me that I only needed him, and he used Marcus to remind me of that. Richard nodded, uncomfortable with the direct reference to God. Okay, so, are you going to stay here? For now, Sarah replied, but not forever. Marcus and we're building something, and when the time comes, we'll go our separate ways. Several months passed. Sarah and Marcus became inseparable. It wasn't a fairy tale romance. It was better than that. It was real. It was built on a solid foundation: faith, respect, true friendship. They laughed together, prayed together, dreamed together. Sarah finally managed to open her small flower shop, a modest but vibrant little shop in a remote neighborhood of Buckhead. Marcus helped build the shelves, arrange the plants, and paint the walls. Thomas invested some money, not as charity, but as a business partner. He believed in Sarah. The big turning point came one autumn afternoon, months after Sarah first arrived at that mansion. Daniel returned. He showed up at Sarah's flower shop unannounced. He was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was disheveled. Life, clearly, hadn't been kind to him. Sarah, he said, his voice breaking, I ruined everything. The woman I left you for. She left me, took half of what I had. I lost my job. I lost everything. I was an idiot, a complete idiot, and I came here to beg, give me another chance. Please. Sarah stood there in silence, looking at the man she had loved, who had been her world, who had destroyed her. And what she felt wasn't anger. It wasn't hurt. It was pity and peace. Ah, Daniel, she said, her voice calm. I forgive you, truly, because I've learned that forgiveness isn't about you deserving it. It's about me freeing myself. But no, I'm not going to give you another chance. Not because I want to punish you, but because I'm not the same woman you left behind. I've grown. I've healed. And I've found someone who values me for who I am. Daniel looked back and saw Marcus entering the store, carrying boxes of vases. The gardener, Daniel said, incredulous. You're with the gardener. I'm with a real man, Sarah corrected firmly. A man who saw me at my worst and decided to stay. A man who has more character in his little finger than you have in your entire body. So yes, Daniel, I'm with the gardener, and I've never been happier. Daniel tried to argue, but Sarah simply asked him to leave. He left. Defeated, Marcus approached Sarah and asked if she was all right. She smiled and said, "Better than ever." Months later, Sarah and Marcus got married. It wasn't a big ceremony. It was in the small church Marcus had attended for years, with about 50 people. Thomas was there as best man. Margaret was there, crying with emotion. She had truly changed, and now supported Sarah with genuine pride. Evelyn, the bookstore owner, was there. Marcus's children were there, happy to see their father smiling again. Amanda and Brad didn't go. Richard didn't either, but Sarah didn't miss them, because she had learned a powerful lesson. Family isn't who shares your last name. Family is who stays when everything falls apart. During the ceremony, when the pastor asked Marcus to say his vows, he held Sarah's hands and said, "Sarah, the day you walked into that house, I saw a broken woman, but I also saw a strong woman, because strength isn't about never falling. Strength is about getting back up. And you got up. You fought. You believed. And God gave me the privilege of walking with you on this journey. I promise to honor you, respect you, and love you every day of my life, not because you are perfect, but because you are true." Sarah could barely recite her vows. She was crying so much. But she managed. And when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, the entire church erupted in applause. After their wedding, Sarah and Marcus bought a simple little house in a quiet Atlanta suburb. Nothing luxurious, nothing ostentatious, but it was theirs, and it was full of love. The flower shop thrived. Sarah had a talent for it, for caring for living things, for making beauty grow. And Marcus continued working as a gardener, but now independently, choosing his own clients, working at his own pace. A year after their wedding, on a winter evening while they were sitting on the living room sofa, Marcus looked at Sarah and said, "Do you remember the day we met? The day you arrived at that house?" "How could I forget?" Sarah laughed, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought it was the end, that I had lost everything, that even God wasn't looking at me anymore." "And he was," Marcus said, holding her hand. "He always was. He was just preparing something better than you could imagine." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder and smiled. "You're right. God never forgot me. He was just writing a better story." And it was true. Where there had been pain, now there was joy. Where there had been scorn, now there was honor. Where there had been humiliation, now there was dignity. God had used the most unlikely man, a humble gardener, invisible to the eyes of the world, to restore Sarah's life, not with wealth, not with status, but with something infinitely more valuable: true love, unwavering faith, and renewed purpose. And every time Sarah looked at the flowers in the shop, at Marcus's calloused hands, at his sincere smile, she remembered a simple but powerful truth. God doesn't need influential people to perform miracles. He only needs hearts willing to obey. The story of Sarah and Marcus teaches us that even when all seems lost, God never abandons his children. He doesn't use power, money, or status to restore us. He uses obedient hearts, willing to see what the world ignores. Where the world saw a broken woman, God saw a story of redemption waiting to be written. And where the world saw a simple gardener, God saw the perfect instrument to perform a miracle. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, comment what you thought, and subscribe to the channel to continue hearing stories like this one I'm sharing with you. Stories that remind us that hope always wins and that true love always finds a way.